So, as predicted, the AfD have done pretty well in the German state elections, and as also predicted, the liberal elite failed to see that they're the ones who've given people no choice but to vote right-wing. So instead of taking responsibility for once in their lives, instead they're just going to compare the AfD to Nazis and pretend that anybody who sympathises with them is evil and far-right and a monster. Of course, we're quite used to this strategy in the UK now as well. Starmer essentially has completely ignored the biggest issue in modern Britain at the moment, that of mass immigration, integration and multiculturalism. He doesn't even think it's worth thinking about, and if you think about it or mention it, you're evil and far-right too. But after the announcement that the AfD had done quite well in the state elections, you can see the left out on the streets here showing their ever-present love of democracy. Remember, to a leftist, democracy is just what they want to happen, not what the people vote for. But the title of Hypocrite of the Year has to go to that denizen of social harmony, Humza Yousaf. He states, a party steeped in xenophobia, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is winning state elections in Germany. Europe is witnessing a rising tide of far-right populism, with hatred of Muslims and migrants being the driving force. We must confront their hateful ideology before it's too late. Now, for about the 1000th time on this channel, as always, liberal politicians make out it's just hate. We're the good, loving people, but if anybody disagrees with us, they're evil, hateful monsters. And what does he mean by confront their hateful ideology? Just enforce more mass immigration on the European people, use the media, academia and cultural institutions as well as education to tell Europeans they're evil people who should be ashamed of their history and their supposed white privilege. Because it's exactly that sort of nonsense that's led to this mess in the first place, as well as Humza showing what a tolerant individual he is, of course.
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white.
Shocking that Scotland, a country which is about 98% white, should have Scottish people in positions of power, isn't it? But this is exactly what I mean. Europeans are sick to the back teeth of being gaslit by people such as Humza Yousaf, who come here and call us essentially evil and racist and not welcome in our own countries. Whether they do this because they're deluded by left-wing ideology or are deeply resentful and vicious, I guess is up to you. Now, as this German fella states on Twitter, I'm not worried of the far-right raping women in my life. I'm not worried of the far-right stabbing my nephews. I'm not worried of the far-right robbing my mother. I'm not worried of the far-right blowing up my nieces at their dance rehearsal. Now, I'm sure the liberal elite types would be very upset at such a statement. They call this guy evil and xenophobic and racist and say, what is Europe turning into? However, has this guy got a point or not? We've had terror attacks across the continent now. We've had all sorts of crimes that are completely ignored by the mainstream. And on top of that, nobody ever seems to do anything. When a concert of children get blown up, we're just told to shut up, sing Don't Look Back in Anger, and don't think about it again. All of this has been overseen by a smug, condescending liberal elite who hold utopian views that keep them insulated from reality. They've told us to despise our ancestors, our countries, our traditions, and view ourselves as evil colonizers who deserve to have our countries overrun by hordes from the third world. On top of that, the cost of living's got out of control, taxes got out of control, and while we feel increasingly alienated in our own countries, we're just told to vote for the uni party again, shut up and get on with your life. Well, now it seems to me that this liberal wet dream has gone too far. In fact, it went too far many years ago, but they ignored the public when they tried to tell them back then as well. But now it seems to me that if Europeans are going to vote this way, they do have to try and hold their nerve, not be psyched out by the liberal media that will call them all sorts of names. After all, look at what happened after Brexit. Many people saw that as an opportunity to gain sovereignty of the country and control the borders. However, we were punished for that decision by having even more immigration. But I do think the liberal authoritarian system is starting to be a bit shaken. What they will likely do in Germany is all gang up to keep the AfD out and then hype up mass immigration and liberal programming in an effort to pull things back into line. But of course, they're so ideologically possessed, they can't see the more they commit to their ideology, the more it winds people up on the other side of the political spectrum. Henceforth, it's going to lead to a major split across Europe down the line. I've been saying that for a while. I think that's unavoidable now, and we'll start to see it really develop in the next 10 to 20 years. But far from viewing that as a negative thing, I think it's an opportunity for Europeans to find their history, their culture, who they truly are, after years of liberal programming. These are just my thoughts, however. Do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.